Hello everyone, welcome to Zaxire Programming. My name is Mayur Garg and today I will be showcasing a project on image classification that I created using Oxford IIIT PET dataset. So let's get started. Firstly, let's look at the dataset. The links to the dataset is available in the README file of this GitHub repository. There are two links. The dataset can either be downloaded from the University of Oxford's website or from Kaggle. If we look at the dataset, we see that there are about 7,390 images spanning across 37 different classes with about 200 images per class. Each class basically represents a different species of pet. This dataset can also be used for image segmentation and bounding box detection. However, we'll be focusing on image classification only. If we look here, we can see that all the images are present inside the same folder titled images, and the class for each image is embedded within the file name itself. Also, these images are supposed to represent realistic looking images of pets. So they have been taken under different lighting conditions, different poses, and can have different aspect ratios and sizes. The code for training and evaluating the model is present inside this train.ipynb notebook. So let's look at the notebook. This model was created using TensorFlow.Keras sequential API, and the TensorFlow version used was 2.3.0. Firstly, we define some constants. These constants include base path for the images, a base path for storing the TensorBoard logs, the image sizes that will be loading, a random state variable, and the split for train validation and test sizes. There are some constants for the model as well, which include batch size, the number of epochs that we will be training it for, the starting learning rate, and dots per inch for the plots that we will be creating. Firstly, we load all the image file names into this image names variable. We can see that there are 7,390 images of type JPG. Then for each of the image file names, we extract the labels from the file name itself and store them into this labels array. We see that there are 37 different labels. Then for each of the class label, we create a label encoding dictionary, which basically maps a class name to an integer number. For example, Bengal here has been mapped to 1 and Wheaten Terrier has been mapped to 35. Then for this above dictionary, we also create a reverse lookup dictionary, which is basically a reverse mapping of the above dictionary. Then we look at the class distribution for each of the classes present in the dataset. We can see that there are about 200 images per class, with the exception of Scottish Terrier, which has got 199 images, and Staffordshire Bull Terrier, which has got 191 images. However, these numbers are also very close to 200, so we'll be assuming that each class has an equal weight. Since each class has an equal weight and there are 37 different classes, the baseline accuracy for any model will be 100 divided by 37, which comes out to be 2.7%. This basically means that if we were to create a model that randomly guesses the class of any given image, that model would be correct 2.7% of the time. Then using the image file names, we load all the images into this image data array. To load the images, we use TensorFlow.images resize with pad, and we will see how this works in just a minute. All the images loaded are of image size, which we defined earlier. As we can see, we have got 7,390 samples of size 256 by 256. And since these all images are RGB, the number of channels is 3. Then for the labels that we extracted earlier, we use the label encoding dictionary to encode each of the labels for each of the image file names. So basically, for example, pug_1.jpg, which has a class of pug, has now the class label of 29. These labels basically form a target variable. Then we visualize some of the samples of the images. We can see that Shiba_Inu_140.jpg has a class of Shiba Inu, and the class Shiba Inu has a target label of 33. As you can see, since we loaded the images with the resized pad, there are black boxes at the top and bottom of the images. If the images are very tall instead of wide, there will be black boxes at the left and right of the images. This basically preserves the aspect ratio. If we were to load the image directly, the images will be stretched or elongated to fill the available space, and that will distort the images. We then take the image data array and split them into train, validation, and test datasets. To make sure that each of the datasets has an equal proportion of each of the classes, we stratify it on the labels encoded array. We can see that the training dataset has got 5,985 samples, the validation dataset has got 666 samples, and the testing dataset has got 739 samples. We then delete all the arrays and datasets that we are no longer required. To prevent the model from overfitting on the training images, we use Keras image data generator for image augmentation. Firstly, we rescale all the images by 255 to make sure that all the image data is between 0 and 1. Then we use the image data generator to randomly rotate the training images by up to 30 degrees, shift the images across width and height by up to 10%, zoom or shear the images by up to 10%, and occasionally horizontally flip the images. Then using this image data generator and the training data and training labels, we create the training dataset, which is of batch size 32, which we defined earlier. There are 188 batches within this training data. We do not use image augmentation and validation and testing dataset. We just rescale the images, and we can see that there are 21 batches within the validation data and 24 batches within the test data. Then we create a utility function to plot some of the images from these generators that we create. So we can see for the training data that the image has been augmented by the training data generator based on the parameters that we specified. So the images have been shifted, rotated, and zoomed and sheared by the specified parameters. We did not specify an image data generator for the validation data, so these images are unchanged. We then create a CNN model. In the model, we specify alternating layers of convolution and max pooling layers, which are then flattened and provided to dense layers for classification. We start with a convolution layer of 32 filters of size 5 cross 5, and we incrementally increase the number of filters by also decreasing the size of the filters. In between, we have added max pooling layers to reduce the size of the images. For convolutional layers, we are using an activation function of leaky RALU with alpha equals to 0.5. For dense layers, we use the activation function of sigmoid. To prevent overfitting and add some regularization to the model, we have introduced some batch normalization layers and dropout layers. The final layer is a dense layer, which is equal to the length of the label encoding dictionary, which is equal to the number of classes that we have, that is 37. The activation function is softmax, so that we can basically get the probabilities which are predicted by the model for each of the classes for a particular image. The model uses Adam optimizer with the starting learning rate that is specified earlier, and the loss metric is sparse categorical entropy because this has got 37 nodes, but the class label is a single integer specifying the index of the node that we are interested in. The matrix is also sparse categorical accuracy. This is the model structure. We can see that this model has got 1.6 million parameters, of which about 2000 parameters are non-trainable. These non-trainable parameters basically come from batch normalization layers. This is the model structure that we have plotted using Keras utility methods, and it has been stored under plots model.jpg for easy reference. Then we define some callbacks. The callbacks we use are early stopping. The early stopping prevents overfitting by stopping the model training when it does not improve any further. We are monitoring the parameter validation loss as a target for early stopping, and the patience uses 10, which basically means that the model will continue to look for 10 further epochs before stopping if the validation loss does not improve. To make sure we always have the best model weights, irrespective of where we stop, we define restore bits weights to true. We also use TensorBoard here, and we define the log directory for TensorBoard, which we specified earlier, with a histogram frequency of 20. We then train the model using the given callbacks, the number of epochs that we specified earlier, our training data, and the validation data. To easily track the progress of a model, we have used TensorBoard in this callback, and to use TensorBoard, we can basically look at the TensorBoard API. As we can see, we have done various runs. Let's just focus on the final run of the dataset. As we can see, the model trains for up to 113 epochs before stopping, and the validation accuracy is, in the beginning is very close to the training accuracy, but slowly diverges off. The histogram frequency that is specified earlier is under the histogram tab, where we can see what is the histograms, or basically the kernel distributions of each of the layers and its weights. This we can visualize for each of the runs that are present. Now let's get back to the notebook. As we can see that this model stops on 113 epochs, but since we define a patience of 10, we can see that the best model, best training loss and accuracy was for validation dataset were actually observed on 103. The model basically looked for 10 more epochs before stopping. Here we plot the training and validation accuracy and training and validation loss, which are also stored under the plots accuracy and loss.jpg for easy reference. This model was trained on 6 GBs of NVIDIA GPU and took about 2 hours and 52 minutes to train. If you are training only on CPU, this can take up to half a day or a full day. Since we already know what a model accuracy and loss on training and validation dataset is, we then evaluate it on the testing dataset. We can see the loss on testing dataset is about 1.07 with about 66.5% accuracy, which is much higher than a baseline accuracy of 2.7%, but nowhere close to perfect. We then predict some of the images from the training dataset. We can see that the model does not predict the Bengal and correctly, but it predicts Ragdoll and Bombay correctly here. To identify which of the images are predicted more correctly than other, we create a confusion matrix. Here we basically have the true labels, and on the bottom we have the predict labels. As we can see that most of the values are alongside the diagonal, which is the most optimal scenario. However, there are some values elsewhere also. For example, the true label of Ragdoll has been continuously predicted as Birdman 7 times. This confusion matrix is also available under plots confusionmatrix.jpg for easy reference. Then we basically save the model using the saved model format. And to make sure that the model can be loaded correctly in the future, we just reload the model once again and test it again. And we can see that we are again getting the same accuracy and loss values. Thank you.